to another English online session. Today I am going to explain you the poem A Legend of the Northland. A Legend of the Northland is a ballad. A ballad is a poem narrating a story. So a story narrated in a poetic form is ballad. Ballad is such kind of poem that it tells a story in short stanzas, and in the poem all the stanzas comprise 4 lines. So each stanza consists of 4 lines. In total there are 16 stanzas in this poem, and these stanzas will tell us a story. The story is of the Northland area, the area which is near the North Pole. So the background of the story, the place where it was happening is North Pole, Northern land. It's not a precise detail given about the place, but we can consider North Pole. This exact place is not specified, but Northland means the area in the northmost part of the earth, near the North Pole. Legend means a historical story, one which is very old and has been passed on from generation to generation. So this is a legend, a story that consists of a moral too. Now let me give you a brief idea about the poet. Phoebe Carey was an American poet and the younger sister of poet Alice Carey. The sisters co-published poems in 1849, and then each went to publish volume of their own. After their deaths in 1971, joint anthologies of the sisters' unpublished poems were also compiled. Very famous poet, and her sister also a well-known poet. Many works, their works were published posthumously after their death. Okay, now let me explain you this poem. Away, away in the Northland, where the hours of the day are few, and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through, where they harness the swift reindeer to sledges when it snows, and the children look like bear cubs in their funny furry clothes. They tell them a curious story, I don't believe it's true, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. So now he was talking about the speciality of Northland. The daytime is very less, and the night is more than the daytime. The hours of the dark time is more than the daylight, and they cannot sleep all the night time or the dark time. And other specialities that they harness. Harness means to tie the reindeers that pull this sledge. Sledge is a kind of vehicle. They use it in the snow places. It can used to travel on the ice. Okay. So 2 sledges when it snows, and the children look like a bear's cub. So the furry clothes, woolen clothes they just wear to protect themselves from snow or this chillness, the freezing coldness. So they look like bear cubs. They tell them a curious story, I don't believe it is true. So usually the elders tell a story, and the poet, she was saying that she didn't know whether it is true or not, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. But if I tell you the same story to you, it has a moral, and you can learn a lesson from it. Once, when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below and walked about it preaching just as he did. So a saint named Peter, he just preached the words of God from the Bible, and he just wander here and there and just preach the words of God. You know, he came to the door of a cottage in traveling round the earth, where a little woman was making cakes and baking them on the hearth. So one particular day he happened to come across a little woman's house. She was baking cake in the hearth. Hearth means fireplace where you do cooking. So there she was baking cake. So he was wandering place to place to preach these Bible words, and particularly on that moment he reached that woman's house. Usually they collect food from the people, the places wherever they go. And being faint with fasting, for the day was almost done, he asked her from her store of cakes to give him a single one. So she made a very little cake, but as it baking lay, she looked at it and thought it seemed too large to give away. Therefore she needed another and still a smaller one. But it looked, when she turned it over, as large as the first had done. So because faint, he became weak. He was wandering, so he became weak. He has done almost that day's work. So she was baking cake, so he asked for a cake from her, and she was preparing that. When it is done, she thought that it was larger than she thought. So it cannot be given away because she is very stingy. So she cannot give that free of cost. Okay, she cannot give it. So she made another one. When it is done, again she thought that it is as large as the other one. She has to give this piece of cake for free. So she is just thinking that this is too much for give away. Kneaded means to make dough from flour. Okay, the preparation of this cake. Then she took a tiny scrap of dough and rolled it flat and baked it thin as a wafer, but she couldn't part with that. For she said, my cakes that seem too small when I eat of them myself are yet too large to give away. So she put them on the shelf. Then good Saint Peter grew angry, for he was hungry and faint. And surely such a woman was enough to provoke a saint. So again she just prepared, just rolled some dough. Again she took and she just rolled it like very thin piece of dough. And she was thinking that when she took a cake and ate it herself, she feel it is very small. But when she decided to give it away to other people, when she gave it as a free of cost, she feel like it is too much. Okay, so the hungry saint became very angry because he is faint, famished. He hadn't food for some time, so she provoked him. Provoked here caused to get angry. He is a saint. He became very angry by the attitude of this woman. And he said, you are far too selfish to dwell in a human form, to have both food and shelter and fire to keep you warm. Now you shall build as the birds do, and shall get your scanty food by boring and boring and boring all day in the hard dry wood. Then up she went through the chimney, never speaking a word, and out of the top flew a woodpecker, for she was changed to a bird. So she is too selfish. You cannot live in a human form, eating and having a good shelter and warm yourself. You didn't deserve that. So you should work like birds. Okay, boring and boring. Boring means make hole in something with a tool. Usually with the beak it make hole and find worms and other things to eat, the birds. So you should find food like that, not like a comfortable position here. Scanty means very little. By boring and boring, you should earn little food, then only you understand the difficulty. Uh, and then what happened means suddenly she just flew, she just moved through the chimney and came out. On the top she came out as a bird, particularly woodpecker. She became an woodpecker. The saint cursed her and she became an woodpecker. She had a scarlet cap on her head, and that was left the same, but all the rest of her clothes were burned black as a coal in the flame. So she had a scarlet cap on her head. Scarlet means brilliant red color. You might have seen this woodpecker, the appearance of the woodpecker, and that left was the same, but the rest of her clothes were burnt black as a coal. So here it's the color of her coat. It became black. Here he was saying it burned and become like a coal. Okay, the feathers on the body of the bird, it's very dark. It's black. So he is comparing it with the coal. And every country schoolboy has seen her in the wood where she lives in the trees till this very day, boring and boring for food. So the children, those who go for school, they watch them. This particular bird is just boring, just searching for the food warm in the dry wood. It's very difficult to make hole in the dry wood. She was doing it. So this particular poem tells us we shouldn't be very stingy. So this is a lesson for everyone. And the elders, they tell this story to the children when they saw a woodpecker. So the moral was you should not be very stingy and selfish. Now let's see the literary devices used in this poem. The first one is rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme of the poem is A, B, C, B. The second line and fourth line is rhyming. The other two, first and third, is different. Second poetic device is alliteration. You already knew that consonant sound, repetition of consonant sound, the beginning of 2 or 3 words with the same consonant letter. Look at that stanza 1, that, they, them, through. These words begin in the same letter T or the sound th. So you can find the same in the stanza 2, 3, 5, 8, 9, 10 and 13. The next one is repetition. Any word or sentence is repeated to lay emphasis on it. Look at here, away, a word is repeated. Okay. So the repetition of word or a sentence in stanza 1, away, and stanza 9, rolled, and 13 and 16, boring. These words are repeated in the line in the stanza. The fourth one is simile comparison, using as or like. In the stanza second, the children look like beer cups. The children compared with the appearance of the beer cups. And next one, baked it thin as a wafer. The cake is compared to a wafer. And the third one, clothes were burned black as coal. The color of the cloth is compared with the coal. Hope you understood the explanation, the moral of the poem and poetic devices. See you with another lesson in the next class. Till then, take care. Bye.